Oh, okay. I mean lunch. Oh, okay. Well, let's get to the book. Let's get to the thing here. Okay. Oh, ta-da! Okay, so we're back. Sorry about that. I might have to cut off that introduction there. So, what do we got? One book left for today. Are we live again? Is there? So we're up to talking about Kurt Vonnegut. Where are we? So, as you know, Kurt Vonnegut. He was. He's a little bit old. He's kind of born at the same time as the Beats and stuff, but he's not really. I mean, he's born in 22, so he's kind of more contemporaries with Kerouac Ginsburg. He's from Indianapolis. He's known for his humor. He published 14 novels, and I mean, he was like one of the 20th century big guys. You know, him, Irving. Yeah, well, Irving was kind of in there, but Vonnegut, Updike, Mailer, the kind of the more of the. And this book came out, and Slaughterhouse Five came out. Probably my favorite book, 69. So it was kind of probably read by hippies when it first came out. So yeah, let's read a little bit of it, get a little taste. So I mean, he doesn't really write long books. I mean, um, okay, all this happened more or less. The war parts, anyway, are pretty much true. One guy I knew really was shot in. Oh, this is the introduction in Dresden for taking a teapot that wasn't his. Another guy I really knew did threaten to have his personal enemies killed by hired gunmen after the war. Okay, so he's kind of like there's like a prequel. There's a prequel to this novel. So let's get to. I'll read. Is it that long? Okay, so and there's like a lot of. Okay, so let's get to two. Okay, so he's there. There's sort of a introduction, but when you get to chapter two, it's listen. Billy Pilgrim has come unstuck in time. Billy has gone to sleep, a senile widower, and awakened on his wedding day. He walked through a door in 55 and come through another one in 1941. He has gone back through the door to find himself in 63. He has seen his birth and death many times, he says, and pays random visits to all events in between, he says. Billy is a spastic in time. He has no control where he's going next. So it's Slaughterhouse Five is one of the world's greatest anti-war books, centered on the infamous fire bombing in Dresden. Billy Pilgrim's Odyssey through time reflects the mythic journey of our own fractured lives as we search for meaning in the world and what we fear most. Okay, so yeah, I mean, I read this book when I was really young, so in high school, definitely was a fan of Slaughterhouse Five and Cat's Cradle and Breakfast of Champions and all those books, and like it's definitely influenced. And I read this book recently. I read a lot of the books that I read when I was like really young, and they seem like really influential. But it seemed like it was a secret influence of Five Fingers Make a Fist, and a bit, not so much the poetry. So let's see, what is Slaughterhouse Five about? Billy Pilgrim. He's born in 22, like Vonnegut, grows up in New York. A funny-looking, weak youth. He does reasonably well in high school. Enrolls in the right classes. Drafted during the war. I mean, 22. So luckily, Ginsburg and Kerouac are later. I mean, they did. At least Kerouac was in the Navy or something, Merchant Marines. He trains as a chaplain's assistant in South Carolina, where an umpire officiates during battle practice and announces who survives and who dies before they all sit down to lunch together. Billy's father dies in a hunting accident shortly before Billy ships overseas to join the infantry regiment in Luxembourg. Billy is thrown in the Battle of the Bulge in Belgium, immediately taken prisoner behind German lines. Just before his capture, he experienced his first incident of time shifting. He sees the entirety of his life from beginning to end in one sweep. Billy is transported in a crowded railway boxcar to a POW camp in Germany. Upon his arrival, he and other privates are treated to a feast by a group of fellow prisoners who are English officers who were captured earlier in the war. Billy suffers a breakdown and gets a shot of morphine that sends him time tripping again. Soon, he and other Americans travel onward to the beautiful city of Dresden, still relatively untouched by wartime privation. Here, the prisoners must work for their keep at various labors, including the manufacture of nutritional malt syrup. Their camp occupies a former slaughterhouse. One night, Allied forces carpet bomb the city, then drop incendiary bombs to create a firestorm that sucks most of the oxygen into a blaze, asphyxiating or incinerating roughly uh, 130,000 people. Billy and his fellow POWs survive in an airtight meat locker. They emerge to find a moonscape of destruction where they are forced to excavate corpses from the rubble. Several days later, Russian forces capture the city, and Billy's involved in the war ends. So, yeah, I worked in the early 80s. I worked with some woman, Vlodka. Yeah, I don't even know how to say her name, but I think she was from Poland. And I think I was like about 15 or 16 back then. So she must have been close to 50. But I mentioned Dresden to her, and she said that it was a beautiful city, and it was a shame that they bombed it. Billy returns to Ilium and finishes optometry school. He gets engaged to Valencia Merville, the obese daughter of the school's founder. After a nervous breakdown, Billy commits himself to a veterans hospital and receives shock treatment. During his stay in the mental ward, a fellow patient introduced Billy to the science fiction novels of a writer, Kilgore Trout. After his recuperation, Billy gets married. His wealthy father-in-law sets him up in the optometry business, and Valencia raised two children and grow rich. Billy acquired the trappings of the suburban American dream, a Cadillac, a stately home with modern appliances, a bejeweled wife, and the presidency of the Lions Club. He is not aware of keeping any secrets from himself, but at his 18th wedding anniversary party, the sight of a barbershop quartet makes him break down because he realized it triggers a memory in Dresden. The night after his daughter's wedding in '67, as he later reveals in a radio talk show, Billy is kidnapped two uh, by 2 foot high aliens who resemble upside down toilet plungers, who he says are called Tralfamadorians. They take him into a flying saucer to the planet Famador, where they mate him with the movie actress named Montana Wildhack. She, like Billy, has been brought from Earth to live under a transparent geodesic dome in the zoo, where Tralfamadorians can observe extraterrestrial curiosities. The Tralfamadorians explain to Billy their perception of time, how it its entire sweep exists for them simultaneously in the fourth dimension. When someone dies, that person is simply dead at a particular time somewhere else, and at a different time, he is alive and well. Pomodorians prefer to look at life's nicer moments. Yeah, look at when you're still living. Go to life, go towards life. When he returns to Earth, Billy initially says nothing of his experiences. In '68, he gets on a charter plane to go to a conference in Montreal. The plane crashes into a mountain where, among the optometrists, only Billy survives. A brain surgeon operates on him in a Vermont hospital. On her way to visit him there, Valencia dies of an accidental carbon monoxide poisoning after crashing her car. Billy's daughter places him under the care of a nurse back home in Ilium, but he feels that the time is ripe to tell the world what he has learned. Billy has foreseen this moment while time tripping, and he knows that his message will eventually be accepted. He sneaks off to New York City, where he goes on a radio talk show. Shortly thereafter, he writes a letter to the local paper. His daughter is at her wits' ends and does not know what to do with him. Billy makes a tape recording of his account of his death, which he predicts will occur in 1976 after Chicago has been hydrogen bombed by the Chinese. He knows exactly how it will happen. A vengeful man he knew in the war will hire someone to shoot him. Billy adds that he will experience the violent hum of death and then skip back to some other points of his life. He has seen it all very, very many times. Okay, so that's what happens in this book. It's a nonlinear narrative. There's a Vonnegut often introduces himself into the narrative. Uh, the structure of the novel is short and jumbled, and there's nothing to say intelligent to say about a massacre. Therefore, the novel's jumbled, non-linear structures reinforce Vonnegut's message about the violence of war. Yeah, the novel opens and closes with chapters in which Vonnegut directly addresses his own war experiences and his struggle to write the very novel you're reading. In between these chapters, Vonnegut tells Billy's story with occasional interruptions, such as "I was there," that link his war experience to Billy's. Vonnegut's narrative voice is so strong, as this experience is similar to Billy's, that he serves as a secondary protagonist himself. For both Vonnegut and Billy, the novel's main conflict is not external but internal. That means neither Billy nor Vonnegut are up against a traditional villain or antagonist. Instead, they are both trying to make sense of the trauma, specifically the devastating firebombing in Dresden that they witnessed as prisoners of World War II. In addition, they're trying to make sense of their experience. Vonnegut struggles to write a book about Dresden that does not romanticize war. Thus, for both characters, the exciting incident or the event that sets the story in motion is the firebombing of Dresden. Let's see. So, I mean, it's an interesting novel, but like the '60s, if you go back, I mean, it seemed like a wacky time for novels. Like there was all sorts of whacking out. William Coswingle, Dahlem Bartholomew. I might be talking about a couple of these. Ronald Sukanik. It seemed like uh, wacky was Richard Brodigan. A lot of the '60s. It seemed like the further out, the better. I mean, like people. I mean, a lot of books like Dune and Lord of the Rings were all embraced. People were for how much the '60s were into politics and Vietnam and protesting. They were also into fantasy and a lot of science fiction. A lot of the best science fiction was written during the '60s. Okay, that's all. Vonnegut, check it out. Peace. Keep your nose clean.